What's up, Kaleb?
What's up? How's it going?
Yeah, it's going good, man. I'm ready for another class. Are you ready to put the class in session for Automation Academy today, my man?
Let's do it. Let's do it.
So I got to be honest. I've got a little carried away, and I've thought about this curriculum for Automation Academy, and
You would never get carried away.
yeah, 1 a.m,
Never happens.
have a 45-minute conversation with Ara, who apparently is the woman behind Grok. Me and her have a great relationship now. And we wrote a narrative. We wrote like a whole short story about automation called The Automation Trap. And I'm super, super excited to break it down.
That's awesome. That's gonna be sick. Your wife is probably like this morning. What? Who is this guy talking to? This chick Ara at 1 a.m. Like,
well, you'll hear in the
what's going
story that this guy has problems with his wife too. The main character, our protagonist, has marital strife. So this goes way beyond automation. Okay, I got carried away. So no Dave today. He's just moving his home. So Dave, we hope things are going well in Canada as you move from one frigid tundra to the next, or whatever it's like up there. And we're bringing in another guy who's no stranger to making chips, Eric Nekich, good buddy of ours, colleague, workholding expert. He's going to come help us break down this story. So Eric, welcome to Lights Out.
Gentlemen, how are you? Great to be back on. Thanks for having me. Also want to point out, I have no marital strife. So,
none. Wow.
None at all.
Great.
No.
And the other thing I can tell you about Eric is he's never told a lie.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. No, can't believe 3 times doing a podcast with you guys. This is amazing.
So, yeah, I think it's going to be a few more. We'll see. We'll see how you do today. This is your trial run.
This is the run.
You have to see if you get into the Automation Academy. You have to apply. It's like college.
Okay. All right. Is there like a physical and mental examination for that?
Yeah, there's a spiritual examination.
All right, then.
So we're going to test you on that marital strife BS. All right. Well, I know you heard we got a little carried away. We told a big story here, but Kaleb, what did we talk about on the first time? Just kind of the first kind of intro, inaugural Automation Academy episode.
Yeah, so we covered a lot. For listeners, if you didn't listen to the last episode, go back one, listen to that. That's going to be a really awesome start and kind of getting going into the series. But we covered quite a bit, kind of how to compete and to make it in this industry. Like, it's not an option to make some changes, both in competition domestically and outside of North America. So we kind of covered a lot of that, what that looks like. We went in depth on some of those numbers, which was really interesting. And just kind of what we need to do. What are the basics that we can start with, right? And we kind of went through a readiness checklist, you could say, right? It's like, what are the things you need to be doing ahead of time before you can really start investing in like automation tech? A lot of people just jump in, right? And we'll hear about that a little bit today in your story.
Yeah, Larry jumps in here.
Yeah,
spoiler alert. But yeah, I think the goal, right? It's a book it's like required reading at Golden Rank. We all have to read this book, The Goal. And I think what's awesome about that is it like puts you inside the guy's life, inside the guy's story as he learns lean continuous improvement. And so I thought, inspired by that, let's tell a story of, okay, I agree, right? Automation's a necessity for the future long-term competitiveness of really any shop. It's going that way. Technology's advancing faster than ever. But it can also be a trap if you don't think about it the right way, or if you approach it kind of eyes wide open with no clue like why you're automating. So without ruining the story, let's get into it a little bit, and we'll talk about, the story of Klaus.
No spoilers.
Yeah. No spoilers. Klaus and Larry, okay? So I'm going to read. I'm going to do my best to read this. You guys can make fun of me if I suck at it. I called Morgan Freeman. Apparently he's like really expensive, so I'm just going to do it myself. All right. The Automation Trap. The morning sun barely cuts through the grime-streaked windows of IronClunk Machining, a squat brick building on the edge of an industrial park. Inside, the air hums with the low groan of three-axis mills, their spindles stuttering as operators fumble with heavy, bulky Dinosaur vises clamping one part at a time. Piles of raw material clutter the shop floor with paper job travelers covered in oil somewhere amongst the pile. And almost finished parts are teetering in stacks, waiting for a quality check that is always behind schedule. Earl, the disgruntled quality guy, grumbles louder than any of the machines. His slow, skeptical inspections are bottlenecking the shop, holding back any hope of progress. Gary, the owner, stands in the middle of it all, his flannel shirt damp with sweat, his eyes bloodshot from another sleepless night after an argument with his wife Linda about how, even when he's home, he's never really present. He's a good man. His heart's as big as the Midwest, but his shop is bleeding money, and his dreams of a thriving business feel like they're slipping through his calloused fingers. Come on now, let's go.
Wow.
Not bad, huh?
You did phenomenal. I almost thought it was Morgan Freeman reading for a moment there.
I have the deep masculine voice that carries authority. So, initial thoughts, gentlemen, as you hear kind of the intro paragraph, what are some of your initial thoughts on Larry's life? Poor guy. He's stressed.
Well, I won't go into too much detail because I know you guys did a really great episode on this last week, but those heavy, bulky Dinosaur vices, those are typically the first things we got to take a hard look at when we're talking automation. Not only are we limiting, the capacity, right? The amount we could be machining and, but we're also, it's an accessibility play to a certain extent, right? We're cutting off access to all sides of that part, they're limiting the different types of materials we could be running. So, there's just a number of problems that come along with those traditional clamping fixtures. And we got to upgrade the work holding, people.
Yeah. I knew you'd go there. It's like you got a little work holding experience. Kaleb, we at Advanced have just started with 5-axis machining. It's crazy to say that, but we've had verticals, we've had horizontals, and just a year ago, a year and a half ago, we got our first 5-axis mill. And is it because we're doing blisks and turbines, or why did we get it?
Yeah, you can kind of read into this story, and it was similar for us, right? It's like we're doing multiple operation parts that usually then we would do with 3 or 4 setups, right? Now we're doing in 1 or 2. And so that's something, if you read into this a little bit, you can kind of gain out of that too, right? All these job packets across the shop floor, multiple parts being moved from machine to machine. And so all that processing time in between, right, is a factor and something we kind of mentioned last episode to look into and what that flow is, and just really a focus on process, right? So, it sounds like Gary's just kind of trying to keep up day to day, right? Not that there's a really solid process in place.
Yeah, the automation trap is like jumping straight into it before you've laid out the prerequisite framework. Automation is not a 101 class in running a machine shop. It's advanced.
Does anyone want to talk about Gary's raw material piles littering the shop floor and his oil-covered travelers? I know here at AME, we're a big believers in lean, and it just seems like Gary could use a little help with the 5 S's.
Yeah. We talked a long time ago with my brother about how a lot of places stop at 3S and they don't standardize and sustain. So what you have is these aren't principles that the shops lives by. So they 5S as like cleaning up your room or cleaning up your kitchen, and then they make a huge mess and put everything in different cabinets every single time, and then so they really don't standardize and sustain it, and Gary seems like one of those. He's got piles of stuff everywhere. He probably cleans the shop here and there when it's time for his ISO audit, but it doesn't seem like he standardizes or sustains. He stops at 3 S's instead of 5.
Right. And at this point in what we're talking about, if Gary puts a robot on the floor and supercharges his production, he's going to have a lot of piles.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, no spoilers, Eric.
Oh, sorry. He might not get a robot. I don't know what's coming up here in the first season of the Automation Trap.
Yeah. And then I think the other thing to point out is, people Machine shops aren't made by machines. Okay. They're made by people, and a great machine shop has great people who have positive energy. And Earl is not happy, man. Earl is disgruntled. And you know why people are disgruntled? Because chaos isn't kind. We talk about that a lot. Like, one of the best things you could do as a leader, we talked about this on Machine Shop MBA, is have a shop where it's like organized and people's missions are clear and their targets are clear and they know what to do. So I think that's part of why Earl is disgruntled. And then also, we talk a lot about bottlenecks, and we talk about Earl and how frustrated he is that he's the bottleneck, quality's the bottleneck. And then it reminds me of the conversations we just had with the guys from Hexagon about sometimes the reason quality is such a bottleneck is because the programming language doesn't necessarily talk to everything else in the shop. The robots have a different programming language. The CNCs have a different programming language. And then you've got the CMM programming language. So it's really hard to have someone who understands all of it, and it's really hard to integrate. That's what I'm so excited about with Maestro. So Kaleb, I don't know if you've heard Mike and I talk about it, but Maestro is this newest innovation from Hexagon. Let's segue into a little custom segment about exactly what that is. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm pumped to hear about it. That's awesome.
Mike, we talk all the time on your show about numbers and all the time on my show about automation and technology. But as much as I'm talking to you, I don't ever get to ask you, how are you doing with automation at Hill?
I love the direction we're heading in automation. It's, it's a constant learning curve for us. And it's, I think the guys really enjoy like the upskilling they're getting out of the automation. And of course we enjoy the productivity we get out of automation. But, like right now though, we're fighting a job. I mean, it's a great job. We've run it on our robot before, but it's always difficult to set up, and it's, it's a hard material. It's got some tight dimensions. And, the thing we're always trying to balance is like, getting our in-process checks and all our inspection done automated, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I mean, we've got this robot running 20 hours a day. Like,
is this your robo job?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So how do I make sure I don't come in the morning?
And you've automated a bunch of scrap?
Yeah, I've automated scrap. So what have you seen? Like, you got any input on that?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny, we're talking more and more to the Hexagon guys, and I've got some thoughts on it. If whoever solves the in-process inspection and correct the machine puzzle is going to be, a rich man, rich woman, but we should just call them. They're always easy to get a hold of. So let me see if I can get a hold of Sean. Hey, what's up, Sean?
Hey, Sean.
Mike and I were just talking about he's got basically an automated lathe, right, Mike?
Yep.
And you're loading and unloading slug work, essentially,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
And you got this one job. It's a little bit more tight tolerance. It's finicky, and his concern is like, how do I make sure inspection is part of the process here, and I'm not coming in the next day to a big pile of scrap I just produced. So instead of me trying to give him advice, I was like, why don't we bring in the expert? And we called you. I mean, what are your thoughts on that and the role that like Hexagon plays in that?
Yeah, so I mean, it's a solution. It's a situation we find ourselves in often, right? So our customers want to automate. They just struggle with how to connect the dots and, how to tie in your CMM and get feedback and so on and so forth. With our latest system, Maestro, it's engineered from the ground up to seamlessly integrate with automation ecosystems that are currently in use out there. And so, like our current system or the previous system, the Global S, you could integrate it, but it was a little bit more painful. And a lot of times it involves a third-party outfit to try to do that integration.
Mm-hmm.
But Maestro, with its plug-and-play automation interface, it eliminates the need for additional hardware. It's all digital components, enable real-time data exchange with other production systems. And it really transforms the inspection from an isolated vertical step to an integrated part of manufacturing.
Yeah. Okay. So instead of it's like, all right, well, all these parts need to go from this department to the other side of the building over in quality or whatever. And then if there's an issue, we can't like alert the machine to stop making scrap because it's totally disconnected. They speak different languages, the different programming languages, different processes. It's all just part of one workflow.
Yeah. Yep. And that's the goal, is to simplify the whole thing, just allow you to set it up as just another step in your manufacturing process of that part. And then once it's measured, the feedback goes straight to the CNC machine, and the next part is made better.
So is it actually making the compensation in the machine and fixing that problem?
We have tools to do that. The Maestro system itself is not doing that, right? It's just providing the measurement of that product, but then the results are then fed to another software or another solution that's going to give that feedback to the CNC machine to make the corrections.
So would this Maestro solution be basically right next to Mike's setup then? Right next to the automated lathe?
It could be, yeah. That's what we're being requested more and more, is to have like a CMM working with 2 or 3 CNC machines or lathes or whatever, and then a robot just feeding the CMM and the constant feedback loop going on in the background.
That'd be a really incredible solution that would certainly solve that balance we're always looking for, right? Because we need the productivity, lights out, but you don't want a table full of scrap.
Yeah, that's the last thing you want, is to come in and find out you got a bunch of scrap or a bunch of rework, and none of it's cheap. So trying to avoid that as much as possible is the route to go for sure.
And the solution I always talk about on Lights Out is, run the finicky stuff during the day when you've got your best people there to pay attention to it. But ultimately, the goal is to not have to do that even, and if you can have a fully automated closed loop solution where robot pulls the part off the machine, checks it, and either pauses and says, hey, something's wrong here, or ultimately even corrects it with, like you said, some additional pieces in the middle where it's actually making those offsets or whatever, man, that's a game changer, because now you can automate anything.
That's the goal.
Awesome. Hey, well, thanks for jumping on and kind of sharing where you're headed and what Maestro enables for me and Mike.
Sure thing. Glad to help.
Appreciate it, Sean.
Let's get into the second paragraph. What do you think?
Outstanding.
All right, here. Got working my voice here.
I'm on the edge of my seat.
Okay. Gary's mind keeps drifting to Klaus, the golden boy of the local manufacturing scene. His lean stream precision is the shop of legend. It's clean, it's efficient, it's profitable. They have high margin contracts from aerospace and medical giants, and even recent Top Shops honors from Modern Machine Shop magazine. Gary's been to Lean Stream's tours, hosted by the Manufacturing Association, where Klaus strides through his shop like a conductor leading a symphony, while his team members proudly lead different parts of the tour with passion, showcasing their roles. Modern CNCs purr, monitored by sleek screens flashing KPIs like OEE and spindle utilization. Robotic machine tool loaders zip around smoothly, loading parts with precision while motivated workers smile. Their continuous improvement ideas scrawled out on boards. Their competitive energy is a stark contrast from IronClunk's disengaged crew. It's a world away from IronClunk's chaos, and Gary's envy burns hotter every time he sees it. His own shop's failures are magnified by Klaus's success. Man, this is deep. This is like the beginning of Gary becoming a psycho, I think. You know what I'm saying? He's obsessed with Klaus.
I won't be denied, Klaus.
Or he's going to get real weird quick.
These German bastards taking all our jobs.
I would like to just remind everybody that this is, in fact, Nick's story. Kaleb and I had no part in its creation, genesis, or...
Put the disclaimer in there. I mean, what are your thoughts after this one? Kind of the juxtaposition of a tale of two shops, if you will.
We've all been in both.
Yeah.
And, I think what you really capture well here is between, that first part of the story and now is even the difference in how the employees tend to conduct themselves, whether they call it morale, call it what you will. And then I'll just like to point out, you have me at OEE. I'm super invested in this story now. So
okay, good. I love it. That's your love language.
Yeah, I think too, not to just, always rip on Gary for this whole story. So let's give him some props.
Gary, hey, his heart is as big as the Midwest, if you remember.
Okay. So in addition to his heart, he went to this event and went and saw what other companies are doing, right? So I'm just going to point that out as a big deal, because the amount of people I meet in companies that have been there for a long, long time and have a lot of experience, don't know what's happening in the rest of the world, right?
Yeah.
And
Completely
that
agree.
disconnect is huge. So we'll give them props there before we continue.
Yeah, that's been the takeaway of a few Making Chips episodes is like, go out and just get lunch with that shop that you might think is your competitor, that other shop with same types of machines, and go just get to know the owner, You might find you could learn from Klaus.
That's amazing. And I mean, that's a great observation, Kaleb. And in so many of these scenarios where we see manufacturing challenges, step one is often just being willing to admit, maybe I'm not doing this the best, and let's go see what's on the other side or across the street, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think the other difference is, I imagine if Gary had to give a tour, he would hope to God that Earl or any of his disgruntled team members weren't talking to the local association, because they're not going to reflect pride and precision and performance. They're going to reflect, I freaking hate this job. I come into work, clock in, clock out, go home and kick my dog. So, that's, I think the difference is, Klaus gets his team members to lead the tour. That's what stood out to me. They're not kicking dogs.
The other thing is, like, what does he notice walking through the shop, right? So it's a lot of the stuff that everyone would notice. He's talking about the people, right? He's talking about certain KPIs on screens that he sees, like especially spindle utilization, which is thrown around a lot. He's seeing robotic cells, right? So these are, a lot of visual cues, but he doesn't see everything it took to get to that point or the why behind it, right? So we'll get into more detail of that in the rest of the story.
Yeah, you're segueing pretty well here. It's like you've read it before, Kaleb.
I don't even know. This is the first time I'm hearing this.
Yeah, you're blown away by my writing skill. Let's move on to the next scene. Last month, Gary stood in Lean Stream's pristine shop, awestruck as Klaus explained how lean processes and smart automation secure their lucrative contracts. This is how we stay competitive. Klaus, I got to do a German accent.
I was just going to say, this is where you can be like, this is how we stay competitive, Klaus
Actually,
said in his...
You just nailed it.
Any German listeners immediately are just going to be like, nope, I'm out.
This is how we stay competitive, Klaus said. His calm but proud. His voice is calm but proud. Gary nodded, but inside he was spiraling, crushed by IronClunk's reality. Low-margin jobs for local clients who haggle for discounts and stretch payments to net 120 terms, leaving his bank account overdrawn. 10 years ago, he sank his savings in a $200,000 loan into buying his boss's failing shop, dreaming of a legacy, but now a barrage of painful monthly payments strain him. His veteran machinists, Bill, we've always done it this way, Washington, and Bob, that'll never work, Williams, are stuck in old ways, grumbling through inconsistent setups, while younger workers quit for rivals, making the talent scarce. With no budget for monitoring systems to keep score or machinery upgrades to improve the output, IronClunk limps along, its inefficiencies laid bare by Lean Stream's tour, and it pushes Gary to a desperate resolve to chase Klaus's success at any cost.
Well, now we know why Linda's mad.
Yeah, you gotta take care of Linda. You can't. Behind every great machine shop is a great woman. Yeah, I think somebody said that. I think that's in Proverbs, I believe.
that was our grandfather.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Even though he never said that, but he showed it.
He should have said it because she was taking care of everything while he worked 90 hours a week. Yeah, so the third scene here, what are your thoughts, Eric?
I want to steal some of Kaleb's thunder from the last scene, which is, I'm kind of starting to align with Gary, where he's really starting to see that there's got to be a better way to do this. And I mean, if you just read that last sentence again, he's ready to resolve and to chase Klaus's success at any cost, right?
Yeah.
So
he ain't no quitter.
No, and that's huge,
Yeah. I think, the critics, they're a little too hard on Gary. And on the Reddit threads about my story, they need to give Gary a break.
Yeah. I noticed that on IMDb too. They were really just going after the poor guy.
Yeah. How often is this the story, right? You've got somebody who's working for a failing shop. I mean, maybe one of Gary's employees feels the way Gary felt. Like, I could run this place better. If this guy is going to sell it, I'm going to put money together and make a play for it. I think I could turn this shop around. And so you see that all the time. We talk about scenarios like that all the time on Making Chips. And that's exactly what Gary did. And then it's like, okay, everybody's got a plan until you get punched in the face. And now it's your turn to like run this machine shop full of disorganization and inefficiencies and disengaged employees. And so, yeah, it's easy until it's your job to do, right?
Yeah. And I think that it just speaks to the overall health of a shop anywhere, right? Whenever you're in a position where, I'll even talk to Gary's veteran machinists, right? When you're in a position where you're not using that talent and that experience to work on the business, instead everybody's kind of handcuffed to working at the business. But yeah, hats off to Gary for, at least at this point in the story, understanding that he's in desperate need of change.
Yeah. You guys ready to move on, or any thoughts on the third scene, Kaleb?
Yeah, I think the other thing to note here is, all shops are not equal in regards to the type of work they take on, what they do, what their capabilities are. And so, this comparison might not even be, legit, right? So that's something too, you have to be careful of. Like, Gary's running more high mix, smaller jobs, and over at Klaus's shop, they're likely running a lot more production, right? These bigger jobs, bigger contracts, which, a lot of companies want to get to that point. But how you get through that and how you proceed through that to automate your facility, to improve your facility, is very different depending on where you're starting from. And before we move on to the next scene, this is where he should. I wish Gary could listen to our last episode about where we talk about how to get started.
Yeah. And when you've got Bill Washington and Bob Williams, we've always done it this way. That'll never work. It's tough to make change. So a huge part of this is, how do you transpose that grit, that hustle, that I really want to make this happen. If we don't change, we're screwed mentality into your whole team, and in a way that doesn't make them full of fear, but inspired to create the change. I think certain things that are like not even close to being discussed here, but like, do you share your financials? Maybe not every detail of your financials, but do you share your like most important KPIs with your team? Like, is your business growing? Is your business profitable? Are you profitable job to job? Are different types of contracts profitable versus others? What would it take to make them profitable? There's this quote, with no budget for monitoring systems to keep score or machinery upgrades to improve the output. Well, yeah, monitoring systems are like really micro scorekeeping. And of course we use them and we recommend them and everything, but they all lead up to these like most important KPIs, which is just the financial health of your business. We talked about that last time too. Like, are you growing, and are you growing profitably? And when you're investing, is it improving your throughput so you can continue to do that and be sustainable? So I think you get people who are disengaged when they have no idea like what it takes to make the company win. They're probably underpaid. They don't know what you have to do as a business to be profitable enough to raise the like kind of general level of pay and compensation for your team. So I think sometimes what happens is, when things are tough, owners and leaders try to like hoard information, protect it. Like, if my team knew about this, they'd be too stressed out, instead of being a little bit vulnerable, inviting them in and saying, hey, here's where we're at today. Let's all work together collectively to get to a better place, because we're all going to win if we do that.
Yeah. And I think that, to your point, most like machinists that I've ever met aren't naive to what's going on at the company, right? They see the problems at quality, they see the workload, feast or famine, really, and so, I mean, most times there's a general understanding that something could be wrong, right? And that fear of the unknown kind of ties into bigger problems.
Yeah, and when there's not transparent communication, that's when all the gossipy stuff starts.
You got it.
All these side conversations start. So, Kaleb, you foreshadowed pretty well into the next scene here, because just noticing what's going on at other shops doesn't mean you can copy and paste to your shop and that it's going to create the same result. One of the things about our family business is we've created a business system. We call it the Gollner Way. It's inspired by all these other great, books and learnings, like one of them being The Goal, which is a narrative-driven story that teaches lean and the theory of constraints. The Toyota Way, EOS, different quick response manufacturing, like different philosophies that were like, hey, that's really good. But even in the book, The Toyota Way, they say these are Toyota solutions to Toyota's problems. There's principles and themes that you can apply to your business, but you need to develop your own way, your own operating system. So I'm a little worried that Gary is going to just sit there and think, I'm super obsessed with Klaus. I'm a little jealous. I'm just going to try to be exactly like him and copy and paste, and it's going to fix my problems.
Let's maybe we're it's prime for a knee-jerk reaction.
Yeah. Right. Let's jerk some knees then, Eric. All right. Next scene. Fueled by the lean stream tour's sting, Gary fixates on one number from Klaus's screens, spindle utilization. Without a machine monitoring system, he can only guess how poor his spindle utilization is compared to lean stream. But he believes if he can keep the spindles turning, then he'll keep the profits flowing. If IronClunk's mills could match that by adding automation, he thinks he could land a high-volume job to rival Klaus's contracts and save his shop. Desperate, he scours an online auction, spotting a used Cobot or a collaborative robot going cheap. It's a fraction of its original price. Gary empties his dwindling savings, betting it'll transform his 3-axis mills into high-output powerhouses. Now, to win a massive precision parts contract, he bids dangerously low to prove IronClunk can compete with anybody. But the decision feels like a gamble against the looming storm of unpaid loans and Earl's bottleneck in quality. His heart is pounding with hope, but also with fear. Woo!
Oh,
Ooh.
Gary, no. Gary, no.
Gary, what are you doing? You make so many mistakes, Gary. I could help you.
Kaleb's the expert on this, but I'm just going to say, measure first, guys.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's like the number one thing is like just jumping into something without knowing your current state. I mean, how do you even know that you were successful or by how much you were successful? Or maybe it got worse, actually.
Yeah.
So hopefully that's not foreshadowing for the story, but
well, what about like root cause analysis, right? I mean, how do you get down to those bare bones and make sure you're even fixing the real problem in the whole process, right? Like the story says, he kind of gets hyper focused on one KPI.
Yeah, and he's obsessed with Klaus, which is just weird, right? So he's doing like his idea of root success analysis with Klaus and trying to think like, oh, what makes this guy successful and how do I apply that to my shop? When he probably doesn't realize Klaus started where he was at one point. If you try to copy and paste to like a way more advanced situation, you're going to be in trouble.
Yeah, so if you guys are good with it, let's focus on this for just a second.
Yeah.
Right? So he hyperfixates on spindle utilization, which is very, very common. Like if anyone tracks anything in most shops that I walk into, it's that, right? They start with that, which is in itself not a bad thing.
Yeah, if you're not making chips, you're not making money. We say it
exactly
at the end of every Making Chips episode. We are the problem.
Yeah, we are the problem. We do say that. And then at some point we did change it. I forgot what episode that was, but we changed it to if you're not making the right chips, you're not making money. Right?
Yeah.
And the reason for that, and he did mention OEE earlier in the story, and the reason for that is like spindle utilization is just one part of the overall metric, right? So I could have great spindle utilization, but I could just run my machine super slow, right? So I could actually make a lot less parts, but have great spindle utilization.
Yeah.
Right? Which is obviously defeats the purpose. Or I can just have really, really poor quality parts. Like I could have great spindle utilization and even plow through stuff, right? But if 100% of the parts are bad, I also gain nothing.
Yeah.
So that's where like a metric like OEE, and it's good we're bringing this up because last episode we kind of got all the way through those initial things to talk through. And the one aspect we didn't get to quite was KPIs and what to look at.
Yeah, we promised we would talk about it in this episode, and what we didn't promise is that it would be attached to an incredible story written by yours truly and AI.
Yeah. And I mean, I think going into those KPIs is going to be great for the audience, but I mean, also want to point out that, I mean, clearly at this point in the story, Gary has decided to try and automate some very, very unreliable processes.
Mm-hmm. So let's kind of break down how spindle utilization can lead you astray. Obviously, unreliable processes lead to chaos, which leads to a lack of standardization, which we talked about on the last time. And if things aren't standard, Kaleb, you had a really good nugget in the last episode. Like, a good way to test if you're automation ready is to like automate while you attend the machines. You just don't touch it. And every time you have to come in and interrupt it and fix it and guide it, and that's no one's going to be there to do it, right? So if you're unreliable, you're screwed. But also if you're just cutting chips and not factoring in things like availability, performance, and quality, like the OEE formula, then you might be like, hey, we're killing it. Our machine's running all the time. And really, you're not killing it. So
yeah, exactly. Yeah, I really would have loved to have seen at this point in the story, Gary go talk with Bill and Bob and whoever else is in his team, and kind of instruct them like, hey, like let's start having this cultural shift of what this could look like to automate. Start asking more questions around it, and start asking them to be more hands off, right? And very quickly they would see what they need to improve on first before they just throw a robot on something, right? So they would, if they're machining a part and they get to a point where they have to blow off chips off the tool, right?
Yeah.
Or, obviously they have to intervene every time they're changing out a part, right? Which is the one portion you got right with that. A robot could help with that, right? So just every time that someone has to intervene, you document that. And so you can see the amount of unattended time you would get if you
like 3 minutes. Like, dang it. This robot is going to take forever to pay for itself. And then the other thing is, okay, so he ends up buying a collaborative robot. And this is where we want to touch on your expertise of like, what form of automation did you apply? So if we remember, Gary's got like kind of a mix of work, and he doesn't have these high volume, lucrative, high margin contracts from regulated industries like medical or aerospace. But he sees robots working at Klaus's shop. So he goes and, hey, I need a robot, right? So how does a collaborative robot potentially limit the mix of work you're able to run?
So in this case, where he's like just buying a collaborative robot to load parts, he doesn't already have those higher volume jobs. So a collaborative robot can be good for the right situation when you truly need it to be collaborative. Like if you need someone working in that space, or you're maybe just switching over jobs every few months, right? And you have someone that wants to learn how to program a robot. Like that's fine. But there's a few reasons that can be tough. I mean, first off, like, is that like backing up, is a robot in that form even the right solution? Right. So if I'm loading parts versus loading pallets or vises, right, that's probably like backing up the main question. And for someone in his state, like typically we would lead them in a direction of loading pallets, fixturing, or vises, because it is a higher mix environment. And what you're saving on is a lot of change over time. So if you have a system, whether that's a pallet pool that comes with a machine, which he likely does not have, or if that's a retrofit system that attaches to that, now he could have multiple jobs on there at the same time running unattended. Not day one, but down the road. So something like that would likely be a better fit without knowing every detail of what he's doing.
Yeah, you'd have about 100 more questions before you could apply the perfect solution. But there's some red flags that pop out right away.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah. And then the only other thing I was going to say is just because we're touching on it, and this could be for a whole nother episode after this series, the whole collaborative narrative, right? Like the Cobot is actually not a real thing. Like if you look at safety standards and everything, it doesn't exist. It's a collaborative application, right? So the entire application has to be collaborative, meaning like you could throw a sword on a Cobot and it's not collaborative. Like, it will very likely kill you.
Yeah.
So, that's.
I want to put a lightsaber on a Cobot.
Seriously.
You had me at sword on a Cobot, and I would say that is exactly why you give it a 6-foot cord in case it turns on you. It can only chase you 6 feet.
Yeah.
I was like, Eric wants to like message Gary and buy this Cobot from him now so that he can.
But I will say, and you kind of started this tradition of showing a little sensitivity to Gary, having Gary's back, Kaleb. So I will say that he's not alone. He's not on an island here. We've all been in a lot of shops, and there are a lot of people who tried to throw a Cobot at a business problem.
Mm-hmm. It's not always the answer. It's probably usually not. I mean, what'd you say to me the other day? Like, I've seen more Cobot. How'd you say?
I have seen, and I am not exaggerating, I have seen more Cobots still in the box sitting on shop floors than I have actually seen loading parts in and out of a mill.
Yeah, we've all seen that. Like, if you're like the three of us and you visit a lot of shops, you see that, like, little Cobot in a crate, just being like, put me in, coach.
Someday.
So here's what I love about the two of you. So Kaleb picks up right away on like application red flags. Like, why would you do that? And then Eric, you're a commercial sales leader. So there's one thing that I'm picking up. I want to see if you're picking up on the same thing. But as far as like applying the robot to win a contract and pricing, did that jump out to you at all?
Yeah, a little bit.
Like, why would you bid dangerously low because you added a robot? The robot should make you more profitable, not more of a commodity. You're more efficient. You shouldn't like dock yourself, like ruin your company. Like, hey, we got better, so like now we're worth even less.
I mean, it's just genuinely like a fundamental misunderstanding of why Klaus is successful.
Yeah, you nailed it. So, all right, we'll get in. It's the last scene for the day, class. Are you ready for it?
I'm ready. I just hope that you don't do like that hanging last scene thing where we got to wait till next week to get the rest of the story. So.
Hey, I'm the teacher. Okay.
All right.
If I want a cliffhanger, I will hang on a cliff.
I don't know why I couldn't think of that cliffhanger.
Yeah.
I was like searching for it.
The hanging Chad, is that what it's called?
The hang.
All right, let's finish this up. So to his delight, the job gets awarded to IronClunk, but it comes with a stern warning from Mr. Green, the supply chain director of Shrewd Tech Enterprises. Gary, we're taking a risk by sending this job your way. I'll be honest, Lean Stream was our first choice, but their capacity is priced at a premium, and they're fully booked right now. These parts better be on time, and they better be perfect. Gary nods, a knot tightening in his chest, knowing his Cobot and shaky processes are untested against such high stakes. The warning echoes in his mind as he faces his shop's chaos. Earl's slow quality checks, veteran machinists grumbling, and the relentless pressure of loan payments straining him. His fleeting triumph overshadowed by the fear that IronClunk might not deliver, and Mr. Green might regret ever giving him this chance. What happens now? Are we hanging on a cliff? Let's go.
My childhood experience playing Clue, I knew it was going to be Earl with the veneers in the QA lab.
Yeah.
No.
No, someone's definitely a psycho in this story. We got to figure out who it is. Gary's a little obsessed with Klaus. Earl's all pissed off. He's checking parts, just thinking, I'm going to kick the heck out of my
I wonder if these are all characters that exist within the depths of your personality, Nick.
Yeah, I come off kind of happy-go-lucky, but deep down, these characters are coming out for a reason.
We might actually have to turn this into like a murder mystery. Like that's such a trend right now, murder mystery like shows.
If we really want to get an audience,
like someone actually ends up putting a sword on a Cobot. And, it's like I don't know how it got there. Who did it?
Earl's like, hey, Gary, check this out. Look what I did. Off with his head. But yeah, okay. So as the story closes, any final takeaways before next time where we continue the saga, the tale of two shops and the automation trap?
I mean, the thing I pull out the most is, that last sentence where he decided on a solution, he's implemented the solution, and he is afraid. Mm-hmm. He has zero confidence And it's just, at this point, it reads of just throwing good money on top of bad.
Yep, I hear that.
Yeah, you want to be excited going into that.
Yeah.
Like, and I've seen that firsthand is like when a customer gets it and it's like, we've run these numbers, we've tracked your process, you have a stable process. They've gotten to the point where it's like so close to being automated, but not automated yet. And they take that next step. There's such a confidence there. And it's just, I don't know. It's honestly just a beautiful thing. So I feel really bad for Gary.
Yeah.
I'm not going to be able to sleep.
Back to pricing and the commercial side of it, like when you're confident that your shop is going to kill it and you're efficient, you're confident to say, here's my price. And I know Gary's desperate, and there's some truth to like, hey, when you're desperate and you got to fill your shop with work and you got to get out of debt and all the financial woes that Gary feels, you can't exactly like pick and choose and cherry pick your customers, but you also don't want to be like, hey, the only reason I'm getting this job is because I was the lowest bidder.
Yeah. Well, and, by not leveraging an expert, by not, seeking some sort of a consultation, maybe peeling back a few more layers on what truly makes Klaus successful. I mean, even going and getting like a productivity coach or hitting a chat board or something like that. Did Gary effectively buy a car with no tires?
Yeah. Like, learn how to do value stream mapping, or if you don't know how to do it, call your local MEP. I mean, that's something we've been talking about a lot on making chips. Like, you can call, if they're still open, you can call your local MEP if they haven't been shut down. And you could say, hey, can you help me with this automation project? Not only will they help you understand like everything Kaleb talked about with what's the right tool for the job, what's the right solution for the application, they'll also help you like apply for grants and get this, paid for with a tax credit or some sort of, incentive that you might not be aware of. Feels to me like Gary's probably not all over it when it comes to what's available and what to apply for and how to be awarded certain grants and opportunities. So there's a lot of people who can help you. Hey, Making Chips can help you. The Lights Out team can help you if you need help with workholding or if you need help with applying automation and where to apply it. And I think that where to apply it part is what sticks out to me. So Earl's pissed, right? Earl's unhappy. Earl's the bottleneck. You just automated something that's going to run through the night that's before Earl. Is Earl going to be less stressed tomorrow?
Right, exactly.
No.
And I will say too, like in Gary's story, I have a feeling this is going to be a beautiful redemption story over the next few episodes. And so, we've looked at this first part of this of like what not to do. That'll probably likely go into the next episode of things not to do.
Yeah.
But I will say, I have a feeling there's going to be a redemption story and he's going to look back and like, oh, these are the things I should have done. And so for anyone listening, I think that'll be really exciting too, is like, okay, showing both sides of this is like things not to do. And then, okay, what he should have done and what to do down the road. I'm excited for that. So.
Yeah. If we depressed you by telling you Gary's story, Kaleb might be right,
It might not be too late for Gary and Linda.
Yeah. The whole next episode will be a marital counseling session.
One thing, I really like to point out here, like, Gary's kind of willingness to come forth and say, yeah, there's got to be a better way to manufacture. There's got to be a better way to run my shop. But then he kind of just gets to this point where he kind of loses that desire to, I don't know where I'm going with this, but, in a scenario where he should have really been okay accepting what was beyond his area of influence, outside of his wheelhouse, and be like, yes, I need to start automating. I need to start measuring these processes. I need to get more like Lean Stream. Who can I call? Instead of just this kind of,
Yeah, Gary's not without courage. He's super stressed out and he's afraid, of course, but he's got courage. He's taking some risks here. So it'll be exciting to see how this all turns out. But boys, the class is out. The class is out of session. If you're the last one out of the classroom, will you please turn off the lights?
I'll dim them.
Oh.
That's where we're at in this story.
Yeah.
I will only dim the lights.
I will have a Cobot with a sword chop the light switch off the wall.
There you go. Wonderful. All right, guys. Thanks. See you next time.
Thanks, guys.